most resilient parasite, an idea.
Okay, so we're going to look at how we would approach this so that you can get as much done as you want whilst remaining in a good state without any kind of drama. The first thing, and it might be the hardest thing, it's the thing that when I'm working with clients, it's the thing that many people find the toughest thing to do, is to actually acknowledge that there's a problem there. To actually go, okay, I think that I have a variable response to stress. I have a potentially a diminished response to cope with stress. Doing that, acknowledging that consciously, and then doing something about it takes vulnerability, which is a good trait. It takes humility, which is a necessary trait if you're going to survive on the planet. And you also need quite a high degree of self-awareness. So acknowledging this is to be done in the correct spirit. It's not to be done in a way that is judgmental or critical, in a way that is demeaning, where you'd be like, oh, I'm fucking useless because I can't get stuff done without having a breakdown, where you would actually just say, okay, just be curious about it, approach it like a psychologist would, look at it systemically and go, ooh, there seems to be some kind of a malfunction in the system that I'm going to fix. But that requires you embracing some vulnerability, some humility, and some self-awareness. As you're moving forward in life and you're developing your own philosophy to live by, you might want to keep these traits in mind. At one time in ancient Greek philosophy, they would have been considered virtues. Some of the major virtues of ancient Greek philosophy would be vulnerability, humility, and self-awareness. What do you want to do next? Once you've acknowledged that there might actually be an issue there that needs to be tackled, what do we do next? Observation, orientation, decision, and action. Observation, I'm aware that there is a problem. Orientation, I'm aware that the problem might be something to do with stress. Decision, I would like to do something about this so I can get shit done and stay happy. And then you take action. How are you going to take action? What I want you to do is I want you to think in terms of actually writing up a battle plan. What are the objectives of what it is that you're trying to get done? This means that if you really struggle with this and you really want to get things done, you need to model and adopt the habits of effective people who get a lot done. And guess what? They write shit down. What you want to get done, you've got to write it down, preferably in list format. And you should write primary objectives and secondary objectives. Why? Well, as the famous military maxim goes, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So you might have a plan for the stuff you're going to get done today. Boom, something happens. You're going to have to deal with it. Once you've dealt with it, you've got to move forward. Sometimes you're going to have to let things go. So you need to have the flexibility in the moment of going, okay, my primary objective, I'm not going to be able to do that today because X, Y, Z reason. So am I going to give up? Am I going to have a temper tantrum? Am I going to pull the car over and start crying? Or am I going to start looking to the secondary objectives? I can't do this today. It's not going to happen. What can I get done? What are my secondary objectives? So your plans and your objectives are written in such a way so that they have flexibility. It doesn't matter in principle whether you're, and I'm speaking from experience here, whether you're setting up a business, whether you're starting a new project or doing housework. It doesn't make any difference. It's the same principles. You've got to get it done this way. My background was in teaching self-protection. I used to teach self-defense. I used to teach martial arts. And predominantly, it was military and police focused. My brag to this is I used to train the air marshals a long time ago. They used to use my material out of their training facility in Las Vegas. And the approach is exactly the same. The approach would be the same for moving into a new house, setting up a new business, furnishing a new office, whatever it is, as it is when you are actually facing potential violent conflict. You've got to have primary and secondary objectives, because if you can't hit your primary objectives, you instantly move to the secondary objectives. You don't just give up. If I'm on a plane and somebody's armed and starts attacking people, my primary objective would be to knock them out. And if I can't do that, and I'm an air marshal, or, well, actually, they would just shoot them, but I'm British, I don't use guns. So I would want to knock them out. If I can't do that, and I can't shoot them, do I then temper tantrum? Do I start crying? Do I just give up? Do I just throw the gun on the floor and go, fuck it then? Fuck it. I'll just eat a sandwich and let it happen. No, I have secondary objectives. I can't shoot the assailant. I can't knock them out. What can I do? Can I start moving in such a way as it protects other people? Can I start doing something that stops them from being able to move? Can I cut off their movement? What is it that I need to be able to do? Flexibility. So you've got to have flexibility in your plan. You want to identify potential threats. So in the context of normal daily life and adulting well, by the way, I have to teach this to guys and girls who come back from combat zones and have PTSD. They go and they have a completely normal capacity to deal with daily life. They come back with PTSD, and going to the shops can be a problem. Going to the bank and getting a form filled out can be a major dramatic incident, because PTSD diminishes the person. Remember the cup I showed you before? It puts holes in the cup. It diminishes the person's capacity to cope with normal daily life. That brings a huge amount of shame and frustration and self-loathing. None of these things are good. I want you to feel curious and open and, oh, why is this happening? And viewing it from a systemic point of view. So identify threats. What is it that usually sets you off? Is it time? Is it time constraints? Would it be number of objectives? Would you feel overwhelmed if I said, okay, you have 20 different things to do. Here's a list of 20 things to do. That wouldn't bother me, but it bothers some people. You know, for you, this is about you developing a better relationship with yourself as well. You might prefer to be told, just go and do that, and be given a generic goal. Go and furnish that office. You might prefer that. Some people need to know, I need the desk going here, I need the chairs going here, I need that cupboard going over there, and I need this there. So it's going to come down to, what do you find annoying? What do you find wears your brain out? Is it time constraints? Is it the number of things to do? Is it too much specificity or too much generality? Specificity to generality. This is different person to person. You might want very, very vague general goals to move in order to feel calm and in control. Other people need to be told, micromanaged to the letter, exactly what to do. Learn yourself, know what sets you off, and know when it's beginning to happen. Learn when you are beginning to go into overwhelm. And stop, if you can. If you're in that moment and you can see yourself moving in a certain direction, is there the possibility to take a 15-minute break? Is there the possibility to go, you know what, I'm not going to do this right now, I'm going to have to do it later? Is there a possibility of doing this in another way, rather than doubling down and just hammering into it? Hammering into things unintelligently is not a smart way of getting things done. The most effective people in the world for getting things done don't just hammer away at stuff. That is not smart. Always find the most intelligent way of getting things done. And remember to be flexible. So you might have an idea of what you're going to try and get done for the day, for the week. Something comes up. Don't just rigidly hammer away at the same way of doing it. If something comes up and you need to adapt and change it, change it. Bear in mind what your primary and secondary objectives are and approach them with flexibility and intelligence. It's important to know where and when the threats are coming. What is it that sets you off? What is it that you find, or maybe you could backtrack in your mind and go, okay, when there has been like a dramatic meltdown in the past, what is it that caused that? There's a whole variety of them. For some people, it's sensory. So it might be noise. It might be specifically the noise of people or the noise of machinery. For some people, it's specifically traffic. For some people, it's specifically, I don't know, like bad customer service or people being rude. So what would be smart, what would be intelligent, would be to say, okay, I know that I need to go to IKEA. Ugh, awful place. And I know that I don't like that place. And there's certain things about it that I really don't like. Okay, how can I get through that experience without going into a state of overwhelm? Because I might say, okay, I don't think I'm likely to have a dramatic response to it, but I don't want it to affect my mood at all. I don't want it to bother me in the slightest. I want to do it and feel good. I don't want that external experience to affect my internal state. So how am I going to deal with that? And then you just navigate. You just go, okay, these are the threats. This is what tends to happen. You could probably write out an equation like the amount of time I spend, so it's time multiplied by the amount of time I have to spend walking at a snail's pace behind a really obnoxious loud family whilst they block the whole corridor equals, overwhelm, or whatever it is for you. Whatever that happens to be, you've got to figure it out. So you have your objectives, you have your threats that you're going to try and avoid or preemptively just evaporate. If there's something in the environment that you think is going to do your head in, like the number of things you're trying to do or the time constraints you've placed, change them, break it down, make it manageable, make it something that you can deal with. There's always things that you can do to adapt a plan to make it something that is ultimately more manageable for you. And customize it. Okay. The third component for this particular section that is going to make all the difference in the world, if you do it. So if you actually write things down that you need to get done in a list format, and you make a list in a section marked primary, and in a section marked secondary, things will improve for you very, very dramatically. Part of that is a little bit of a placebo effect, like 20% of that is a placebo effect. Because in terms of those of you who are interested in psychology, in terms of neurolinguistic programming, it's called an internal representation. And if I have a whole heap of things to do, and I represent them as outside of myself and moving, then it feels that like they're out of my reach, outside of my locus of control. If I reduce them to a list that I can pick up and hold in my hand, and it's static, because writing is static unless you're in a Harry Potter movie, you look down at the list and you go, that's all I have to do. It's right there, it's right there, it's right there, it's right there. So there is a little bit of a placebo effect to it. So do it. Don't just go, yeah, I did do it. And I'll say to you, did you really do it? And you go, yeah, I wrote a list. And I'll go, show me the list. And then you'll say, it's in my head. I don't want the list in your head. I want it in the real world, IRL, with a pen and a piece of paper. If you can only do it on notes on your smartphone, okay, that's better than nothing. But the real magic is in writing it down with a pen and a piece of paper, walking around with it and crossing it off. You'll go, that sounds really stupid. It's too simple. Do it. It will work. The second thing that you should do that has magical effects, but is too simple, so nobody does it, is set your intent. Intent. And you want to set that intent in the positive. And I'm not saying use positive language. What I mean is, don't say what you don't want to do. What? Don't say what you don't want. No, because that won't work. So if you say, I don't want to get stressed, your brain is going to focus on stress. So if you're setting your intent and you're using positive language, then you're talking about what it is that you do want. Setting your intent is, I want this to be easy and I want it to be fun. I want it to be easy and I want it to be fun. And then you go back to your lists and you go back to your plan and you start thinking in terms of primary and secondary goals, being intelligent, customizing it, making it manageable, being flexible. How can I make this fun? Find a way. Just ask yourself the question. Just look at the list of things you've got to do and go, okay, what 3 things could I do that would make this, getting this done, a little bit easier and a little bit more fun? Your brain is a question answering machine. You'll come up with something. Now that might be certain reward points throughout the day for getting it done, where you go, okay, if I do the first 3 things on this list, I'm going to do that. If I do the next 3 things on the list, I'm going to do this other enjoyable thing. Whatever it is. Or you just find a way of making that experience more enjoyable, depending on what it is you've got to get done. So do take fun seriously, because things being fun is an extremely serious business. Why? Because, well, back to evolutionary psychology and biology, your brain and the whole central nervous system is really hardwired for two impulses, only two impulses, and they actually form part of the same impulse. If you work with what I'm about to show you, everything will work out for you. If you work against what I'm about to show you, nothing will ever work for you. Nothing. It can't, because you're going against the system. It would be like driving a car and hitting the accelerator and the brake at the same time. It can't work. Mechanistically, it doesn't function like that. So your brain and the central nervous system, I'm going to draw a brain and a central nervous system. Those are the nerves. Yep. And this is the brain. There you go. There it is. Brain, central nervous system. And what's going on here is all of this is operating as a mechanism to move according to two principles. To move away from pain and towards pleasure. And if you acknowledge that that is what your body and your brain is doing, then it will work for you. So if something is god-awful, like say it's the gym, and because I have a lot of friends who are personal trainers and I have clients who are personal trainers, and they'll always talk to me about what they're training their clients to do, and you know, hip hinging and hip flexors and stuff. And I'm like, your clients as human beings don't give a shit about any of that. The only thing they care about, and the only thing they'll keep giving you money for, is are they having fun when they're training? And do you know what? If they're having fun whilst they're training, they'll train more. And they'll train more frequently. And when they do train, they'll train harder. What is the end result there? They'll be better at training. They'll get better results in the gym. I'm always saying to personal trainers, make it a pleasurable experience. Make it something that the client associates pleasure with. Now, physically, they're going to experience pain because, hey, that's lifting weights for you. But whilst that's happening, there are things that personal trainers can do that activate the reward system of the client. It's called encouragement. It's called saying, yes, well done, good, do that again, great form, go again, yes, yes, do it again, giving them focused attention. So if you're moving towards pleasure and away from pain, you will keep doing it. One of the things that we have to learn, and the whole field of psychology is very, very, very resistant to this idea, and it's why they fail on such a grand scale all the time. No field that I'm aware of fails to deliver what it says it will deliver so frequently and on such a grand scale and continues to be in operation without anybody suing them. Psychotherapy, psychiatry, psychology, counseling, it's all the same. Because it can't. It literally it doesn't have the tools to actually deliver what it says it's going to deliver, because nobody wants to look at the unconscious. And everybody treats the unconscious like this spooky force, this spooky effect. It's some weird Jungian thing. Ugh, we don't know what to do with it. It's very, very simple. The central nervous system and the brain, they're complex in a certain way, but at the level of principles, it's very, very simple. It's moving towards pleasure. That which is life-giving, life-affirming, and leads to more survival, the body will experience as pleasure. That's why you like to eat food. So you eat food and your brain goes, there's some serotonin, feel good now. That's why sex feels good. That's why everything that is related to life continuing is rewarding, is pleasurable, and everything that is life-denying or life-negating is painful. This taps straight into the unconscious. That's all I do with clients. And we go, oh yeah, it's hypnotic language patterns to neurolinguistically program their unconscious. Well, yeah, kind of, but mainly it's about associating pleasure to that which you want the client to do and pain to that which you don't want them to do. So as you're going through this and getting shit done, if you're feeling like, hey, this is good, I'm enjoying this, you're going to do more of it. And as you do more of it, you're going to get better at it, because whatever you do a lot of, you get good at. So repetition becomes a skill. And if you repeatedly feel good, you'll get better at feeling good. And it's a worthwhile practice. Richard Bandler, the founder of NLP, says, feel good for no reason whatsoever. It's something that's worth doing. They have a similar adage in the Zen tradition. If you listen to Zen teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh, he's constantly encouraging people to feel good even in the absence of there being a reason to feel good. If there's no reason to not feel good, then you should just feel good, to try and train yourself to have that as the baseline state. So repetition over time becomes skill, but you're only really ever going to repeat compulsively that which ultimately delivers pleasure. So you need to learn how to associate pleasure to getting this done if you want it to stick at an unconscious level in order to repeat it so that it becomes just a habitual skill and a strength that you have. Thank you.